Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Ethel, Charles, and everyone in this. It's strange to even have those two words in the same sentence, pastors and suicide, because by their very nature, they speak life, they represent life. But to talk about them committing suicide, it's been a challenging thing, even as we have seen a lot more cases in the past few years.
Yeah.
And the painful thing is that it cuts across races, it cuts across, different backgrounds. We've seen cases in the States, cases in Africa, even murder, suicide issues by pastors, and their wives, in some cases, right in church. And so that's a very, very painful thing, for us to be able to look at. And for me, it's a reflection of where the church is in terms of dealing with mental health. That if the pastors are struggling to the level of taking on their own lives, how much more the average person, the average mother and child and father in the church, where then do they cast their hope? So as a church and as believers, we need to then come back and look at what does the Bible say? What does the Bible say about mental health? What does the Bible say about depression and about stress? And a lot of research has been done on pastors, and it has been noted that most pastors, or rather pastors, they suffer for the most burnout, depression, anxiety, and a lot of things. But the challenge, I suppose, in the church that we're still rising to is that we don't have a platform where we can talk openly about that. Like Charles said, it is as if to admit you are struggling is to admit you lack faith, and to admit you have problems is to admit you don't trust God. And many times, I grew up with mental health issues in my family. I have a sister that is still being treated up to today. When I got saved at 11 years old and I went to church, for many years, all church told me was any mental health struggle is demonic. Just pray more, just cast out the devil. But as I grew up and became a leader and became a pastor, I said, I love God. I trust God. But sometimes life was just too much. The job as a pastor was just too much. Personal issues at home were just too much. And it had nothing to do with my praying or my faith in God, but it had everything to do with how do I handle everyday life and the stresses of life. And so the many reasons why pastors in particular, are suffering through many of those challenges. They are human beings too. They're dealing with issues in their marriage. They're dealing with financial issues. They're dealing with the burden and the pressure of ministry. They're dealing with a whole lot of things, and sometimes some of them are lonely and isolated. Statistics show many pastors give up on the job, because of all that pressure. But also the challenge we are supposed to need to start the conversation is, what does that say about how the church is dealing with it? If the pastor himself can't admit, I always love the story of Jesus, when he said, look at my scars, touch my hands and look at my scars. Because it's not about the resurrected me, but it's also about the scars that I've been through. So can we have an environment in church where pastors can show us their scars? So where we don't just celebrate each other for the blessings and what God has done, but we say, this is who we are. This is what I have gone through. Can we, I'm amazed with a lot of mental health professionals on this platform and in different churches. And as we've spoken about it, can that not be part of the church culture in having supporting teams that work with the pastor? How do we deal with toxic environments in churches that make it difficult for me to share? I'm struggling because I might be on the pastor's sermon or might be have hands pointing at me and say, oh, he lost his job. The marriage is in trouble. The kids are not behaving okay. And people end up leaving churches and end up, giving up on life. So it's said that the church should be an institution of hope and life, and people should run to church as who they are. Being able to seek God's help and the love and the support of the brethren without the fear of being judged. But it's not the case all the time. We have work to do, and maybe we'll pick up on some points as we just discuss further on.